Tell us a little bit about you, the chief.
Born and raised here in Melrose. Graduated out of Melrose High School in 1998. Went off to Alexandria Technical College for a law enforcement degree. Came out there in 2000. During my college time, I was with the reserves here, which is a volunteer program. Got on part-time for about a month or two, and then they had a full-time opening and said, give it a try. You know, the idea was to be here a year and then go move on to St. Cloud or some other big department and take on the world, and settled in a life and been here 14 years now. Got promoted to sergeant during that time, and then took over as chief in the middle of May now.
What are the challenges that you've experienced working with the Latino community?
Some of the issues that we have is the lack of, nobody wants to, I don't want to say tell on people, they don't want to get involved, I guess is the bigger part of it. If there's a fight over here between a group of people and this whole area over here saw what happened, they may not tell us anything because they don't want to get this side in trouble, and you know what? It's all taken care of because they already had their fight, it's done with, it's over with, they'll probably shake hands later in the day and be best friends again, but we still need to do on our side to make sure we're doing a proper investigation. Okay, what did you see, who saw what, and those sorts of things. And a lot of times that's where we run into some issues, is just that you get somewhere and people aren't willing to talk because they don't want to be involved.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any officers that are bilingual or speak Spanish?
Not fluently, no.
Not fluently.
No, I probably speak the most Spanish, and I'm able to gather general information as far as names, dates of birth, addresses, and get a brief idea what happened, but I can't do a full interview with anybody.
What is the process for someone that is detained or somebody that is stopped with no driver's license?
Generally what ends up happening is we make the traffic stop, whether it's for a traffic violation, speeding, stop sign, seatbelt, could be an equipment violation, a burnt out headlight or tail light, something like that. Make contact with them, talk with them. Okay, here's the reason why we stopped you, was because of the burnt out headlight. Were you aware of it? No, didn't know anything about it. Okay, well, you need to make sure you get it fixed. Then from there, we always ask for driver's license and proof of insurance. Generally what happens is the person will say, I don't have a driver's license. Okay, and we try and clarify, do you not have a driver's license at all, or do you not have one in the state of Minnesota? Because some folks will have one from Utah, Washington, or a different state, and just haven't converted it to Minnesota yet. So we can work with some of those things. And then of course there's the folks that just have their Mexico driver's license from before they came up here, which is a few years old. And we try and always verify too, okay, how long have you been here? Are you living here? Are you visiting? Are you working here? Trying to figure out, are you a resident or are you just visiting? A lot of folks have been here for 2 or 3 years. They have families up here, they've been working, those sorts of things. So then it leans more towards, well, here's where we need you to go. We need you to get to at least a Minnesota ID card, if not a driver's license, and you need to take those steps to get there so that we make sure that you're doing everything the right way and you're keeping yourself on the right path, kind of thing. So we work with those sorts of things, and once, if we know, yep, I've been here for 6-8 months, I've been working out at a dairy farm, gainfully employed kind of thing, well, we're going to have to write you the ticket for no driver's license. You can find somebody to come get the vehicle instead of us having to tow it or leave it here on the side of the road for an extended period of time.
If I may follow up with a question, what is the process then if they say, I'm undocumented, I can't get a driver's license?
We don't deal with that for the most part. The only time that we deal with the documentation or any legal status is if they're arrested for a different offense or for an offense, they go down to the jail and the jail asks those questions. Okay. But we don't ask those questions. And people do willfully give that information, and we don't deal with that. It destroys our trust with the community as part of it, and that's what we've worked for all these years, is try and build that trust and try and work with the folks so we can get the reports we need.
What is your relationship with the Latino community?
I think things have gone really well. I've been here 14 years. The kids that are 2-3 years old back then are now to the point where they're getting to graduation age and those sorts of things. So the stickers we passed out in years past, the conversations we had by the car, the events we have where they show up, it's turned things around. There's some hesitation from some of the generations that are a little bit older because they don't speak the language, so it's hard for us to communicate. And there's also just the way life is for them is different than what we're used to, so it's difficult to kind of bridge those gaps. But once the kids are involved, it seems to work a lot better because you can get that smile from mom and dad that, okay, our kids are talking with the police officer, it doesn't seem like anything's wrong, things must be going okay. There's a smile and a handshake and away we go.
What is your perception of the Latino community?
I think it's come a long way. I know originally not necessarily in my viewpoint, because I'm not exactly the generations ahead of me, but I always had the viewpoint that I've never been harmed, wronged by anybody from that community or a different community, so why would I put a label on that whole community if I was never wronged by one or another? There's been some definite changes with, part of it is in the Americanization of the younger folks and those sorts of things, but there's been an acceptance that, okay, we know that you're not coming here to steal all of our jobs away, you're not coming here to ruin our city and those sorts of things with poor housing or anything like that. So I think some of those perceptions are starting to break up and fall down, and people are realizing, no, it's like another person in the community, it's just they have a slightly different skin color. May not speak our language, but a lot of times a smile and a handshake gets you just as far.
Another question would be, do you train your officers to read Miranda rights in Spanish?
We do have it printed out in Spanish, and everything we do as far as if it's going to be an arrestable offense or, generally traffic stops on the side of the road, we kind of fumble through things. We point to things and try and get common ground that way. But if we're arresting somebody or if we're going to be doing interviews where we need more information, that sort of thing, we always use an interpretive service, generally the bridge language service out of St. Cloud, or there's one out of the metro area that we've used periodically. But we want to make sure everybody's understanding things, because it doesn't do us any good for our case if the individual we're talking to doesn't understand anything we're talking about, and we're filing charges against them when maybe the whole story was missed because we didn't talk with the other party. Maybe this was fabricated over here, and if we talked over here and there's holes in the story, we need to fill those in before we can get somewhere.
If somebody were to be detained, how long can they be detained before they get formally charged?
There's some variations to that. The criteria that we have to work off of is within 36 hours. If I make an arrest on somebody, within 36 hours we have to file charges against them, otherwise they're released from jail. Now we can extend that with what's called 48-hour paperwork, and some of that, basically if they get arrested on a Friday night, we can't get them in front of a judge within 36 hours because court's not till Monday morning. So we file this extension on the paperwork, and then from there by Monday morning, the prosecutors will all have all their reports and they'll go through their process Monday morning. Now there can be extenuating circumstances where they get to that 48-hour limit, can't get them in the court, we've just been backlogged with more serious offenses, whatever else, and they'll file, the attorneys take care of that stuff as far as we need to hold them for a bit longer. Or they'll say, okay, we need to set up conditions of release that if they're released right now, they have to follow these conditions and pay this amount to get out, otherwise we're going to have to keep them here or something similar to that. And that's stuff the attorneys work with our 2 new officers on, and we tell them, if you have, traffic is a big thing for us. If you have a violation, you treat it like anything else. If you have a domestic assault, you take the totality of circumstances, and if it means that somebody needs to go to jail, then that's what you do. If not, well, then you make sure that everybody's safe before you leave. So we try and keep it on an even playing field, white, Hispanic, black, or anybody else, so that in the end we don't have something coming back to us, because we want to make sure we're operating as equally as we can.
What message would you have, or anything that you might want to add for our Latino community?
Take advantage of the education that's out there. It can be a difficult situation, especially if English is a second language or hasn't been learned yet. I've seen the kids that have taken advantage, or the families that have taken advantage of that education, they've gone leaps and bounds as far as being able to further themselves here in the United States. And the young kids that, yeah, I'm putting in my time, I know I can be out here or quit whenever I feel like it, or mom and dad are going to accept that as a way of doing things, because I can go work at the dairy farm with them or somewhere else. I just wish I wouldn't see that. I wish that wasn't acceptable with some people. I just would like to see education be used, even if it's just a high school degree. At least you made it through there and you got some opportunities from there. Better employment just with a high school degree than without,